Welcome to another episode of our Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. In this episode, I talk to Michael, the founder of GeoMaus. Mike, Michael, a serial entrepreneur who began his journey at just 13, buying and selling cars. And by 18, he was selling over 500 computers annually. In college, he co founded a firm that pioneered 3D digital twins for real estate. His own venture, Constructed 3D, was acquired by a smart lighting company where he integrated 3D drawings and lighting surveys. Now, with GeoMass, he is revolutionizing global renovation projects with a blend of CAD, BIM, and user friendly web app. Michael's achievement exemplify his relentless pursuit of innovation and business excellence. So hope you enjoy the interview. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a very flattering insight there and very thorough, very impressed. Thank you so much for having me on, Ash.
Cheers. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you can share with us?
I think I don't have a favorite quote, but I do have something that I always kind of reiterate to myself that I think is important for kind of fellow entrepreneurs or people getting into business is that everything takes a little longer than you think it's going to take. And that goes for all aspects of the business, even your life in general. All of us, we don't run on Elon Musk time. So we all these things, getting to the certain goals within your company. You think it's going to take 3 months and it takes a little bit longer, or you have a project, oh, I'll do that in a week, and technicalities come through. So I think giving yourself that little bit of leeway to allow and say, sometimes these things take a little bit longer than what you think they're going to take.
Yeah, definitely. And I can resonate with that because, being a founder, you're always excited with the idea and you start working on it with several different, places and people. And then ultimately, when you're going through it, you realize, no, your estimation was like either underestimated or vastly in a different direction. But
Yes,
that's all the
exactly.
part of learning, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So tell us about GeoMass then. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
I think GeoMaus is kind of it results as kind of a turnkey solution for businesses who are looking to expand or renovate their previous existing, uh, properties. And
Hmm.
a GeoMaus came in that we created a software in which that they could bring all of the kind of 3D data, so your 3D scanning, your as-built drawings, 2D CAD, 3D BIM drawings, all of that into a single place,
Hmm.
and allowing all of the different parties involved with a renovation, which is a huge amount. There's, all the client side, the project management side, the the GC side, the surveyor, all the plumbing, electrical, mechanical, architects, everything into a project. And we also been kind of teamed with companies that had many different locations over a large geographic area, and
Hmm.
we were able to service and provide all of those different geographic areas under one roof, which would be GeoMaze. So it meant that they didn't need to, or they don't need to go to separate providers, whether it be in Las Vegas, Dublin, Ireland, New York. We were able to kind of service all of those areas. And so it reduced costs dramatically and increased all their productivity all in one application. It's very much more simplified and easier way of doing things.
Hmm. So, you know, in a layman's term, what I have grasped from your explanation is, if I run a business where I do buy some old properties, doing some renovation, or I am doing a new property building, and I have multiple stakeholders involved in that project.
Yeah.
So your GeoMass helps me to make sure that the architecture, the design, all the compliances are in place by sharing it on real time. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, that's correct. And I think in construction or development or even maintenance, we do a lot around asset management and maintenance.
Mhm.
A lot of those things we're coming in. We're usually the foundation of the project and everything is based off us. But because of the how expensive a lot of these things are, we usually become a we're usually the least expensive cog in the wheel, and we become what I see as a really valuable asset for them, and it becomes a no-brainer once you kind of be able to come in and see the value that you get out when you're doing these types of projects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get that, get that. Okay, great. So I want to learn more about you. I want to take get a more understanding about your roots, your childhood. But before we go into that, I would like to know more about how did this story begin? Where did you get the idea of GeoMass came from?
Yeah, I think I was in college or university, as they say in the States, and I was doing a course called geomatics. And essentially, what that is, I'll just sum it up. It's basically taking the real world and digitizing it. So we kind
Hmm.
of use devices to capture the real world and then bring it into your kind of digitization software. So like Google Maps would be a really good example of that, or Google Earth, all those type of technologies is kind of where we would have based it. So 3D technologies were pretty prevalent in there, and I think when I was in my second year of college, I was actually selling a computer that you had mentioned in the intro, and I met this property developer or management team, and he was showing me this new technology, this new 3D technology, and my eyes kind of lit up. And then we formed a partnership there that I kind of I wasn't a co-founder. I was brought in as the geospatial lead for that company, and I did that for about 2 years, and that kind of gave me my in into all this kind of the use cases into all these 3D technologies within the property and real estate sector, and then expanding from that was kind of, leaving into college. I left that company, created Constructed 3D, and like you said, that was taken over then by the smart lighting company, and
Hmm.
did my tenure there, did a few years there, kind of. I came to the end of that, and it was very rinse and repeat, and I kind of found that I'd done all I could there at that stage after a few years, and wanted to venture out on my own and create GeoMaus. And I knew there was a gap in the market there in terms of how many service providers there were for this, as well as kind of an expertise that I would be able to bring with consultation.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of left at that stage. But like anything, I mean that sounds like I was very sure that everything was going to work. But when you start anything, you have your hopes that something's going to work. But then when it comes to reality, you have to make it work and start bringing in revenue. It's a totally different ball game. So yeah, no, that was kind of the start and origin of it. In terms of where the idea for GeoMaus came.
Right, right. So So when you had this epiphany, did you look into the market? Were there other products or services? What was going on at that time, and what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move ahead with it?
Yeah, I think like 3D technologies and stuff they have, they're not like it's not absolutely revolutionary, but it certainly is something in when I was going through college and university, it made it normal to me. But like when I was in Busy Built and then Vizen and the other companies that I was associated Constructed 3D, I found that I was approaching a lot of these people, and the actual barrier to the entry was that they actually didn't know that the technology existed at all. They didn't actually know anything was out there, and you know that was one thing. Like for me, it was very normal, and I think sometimes you do get encapsulated into this your network. When you know your network, you think that everyone in the whole world knows about this, and like there's so many service providers, and there's so many people, and so much competition, but in reality it's still very niche when I go out and talk to people. And with that I kind of knew then this is something that there's a huge demand for. There's a huge growth. I didn't do any real market research apart from my actual experiences over the last 4 to 5 years prior to GeoMaus, which I thought was sufficient. And I then just kind of launched it from there. I'm not so much one into really doing your big SWOT analysis and your business, obviously you have a business plan, but a really in-depth business plan of financial planning. And because I think you can get kind of bogged down into that, and you
Mm,
can lose sight, and you can always bring negatives to every business. Every business has competition. Doesn't matter how niche you are or what you are. Like Microsoft has, Windows has, Apple as this competition. So it doesn't
mm,
matter how big or whatever you are, you're still going to have these competitions. And I think if you go into it too much, you will always be able to talk yourself out of doing it. You're always going to say, well, there's this other person doing that, or this other company doing it. There's no point me doing it because the market will be saturated. And you need to kind of forget about that in some aspects, and create your own segment of the market, and realize that is there is a opportunity for you there.
Get that. I mean, it's a good strategy to focus on the work and kind of unfocus on the negativity or sort of things which could demotivate you. And I interview a lot of people on my podcast, and most of them actually say that you need to do a lot of market research before you get into um, any kind of commitments, because you don't want to waste your time. But I guess it also goes other way around, because if you are doing something which is creating your own niche, your own market segment,
Yeah.
then there's no point, because there you're not going to find anything, or if you find it, it's slightly different than what you're offering to your
Yeah,
customers.
I suppose it's different for like different types of businesses, but I think in the avenue that I'm in, it's still very niche. And like one of the main issues around it is that, like, there isn't many service providers. There's not
Mhm.
really many people doing it, like, really, because there's not so many people. You have to be fairly well educated in a university course or something similar. That only, when I graduated, only 6 people graduated a year. How many of those people are going to start a business within the first 5 years?
Yeah,
And it comes that stage. But I think the market research thing. I think if you're in a more of a broad market, doing that market research, or you're launching something completely new to try and get a feeler.
mm,
I can see the importance there. But for me, I basically, I guess I did my market research, with my experience and actually doing work for the last 5 years for other companies,
yeah.
and other, companies that I co-founded, which I didn't have a full ownership of, but co-founded. And that was kind of basically my market research in a rudimentary terms.
Indeed, indeed, and that's actually better, because you have hands-on experience. You have a real-time insight from working on something which you're thinking about. So basically, your market research is spanned over all the years of your experience. That's really good. That's really good. Okay, so before moving into your early years experience, your influences from your family side, would you mind giving us a little bit more understanding about size of the business, where you are in terms of number of customers, size of team, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So at the minute, this year's been a decent year for us. We have me as full time, and then we have about 5 or 6 drafting team members. We have one project manager, and we have a couple kind of virtual assistants, which are, either two are part time and one is full time. So
Mm,
we're at a nine head count at the minute, give or take. Some are part time, obviously. So, um,
mm.
so that's the size. Clients we have, currently we're looking at about 10 clients, recurring clients at the minute. In terms of that, and what else did you say? Sorry, you.
Just the size of the team, and where you are in terms of number of clients and the scope.
Yeah, yeah. So that'll be it. I don't know if you want me to get into numbers, but
No,
uh, you know,
that's pretty fair
yeah.
sense. So tell me, who is your ideal customer profile or persona? Because people use IDP for different words, for where the P stands for persona and
Yeah.
profile. Is it more towards the construction companies, or is it more towards the architecture company? Who is your ideal profile? And the second part of the question is how you are generating traction based on that profile.
Yeah, I think my ideal kind of persona, I guess, would be the more so on the owner or client when it comes to construction or redevelopment. So the actual, the person, saying, I want this building done, and they get all the kind of architects and all the different people involved.
Mm,
Because what we do is we give them a lot of transparency, in terms of visuals, and also in terms of, being able to manage the project, be
mm,
have not in terms of being hands on, but from a top down position,
yeah.
understand what's going on very quickly, and also being allowing them to, have that visual from, they might have 10 or 20 different locations that they're doing even at once. And, to be able to have all of that information within a single platform, and also being able to discuss with everyone and answer all the different questions that they might get asked, is probably our ideal.
Mm,
And that is usually where we get our best kind of, I guess, if you want to talk about outreach and being able to expand,
mm,
is a lot of those kind of, owners and developers, or acquisitions, people within acquisitions of buildings, uh, that, they, once they kind of get us in, they go, wow, this is, super powerful. And they start to then, a lot of us is through recommendations. So word of mouth, word
mm,
of mouth is still, we're all in the technology world, but word of mouth. And
mm,
then we also have an outreach and sales part that we do, which is our normal, but we're usually using, trying to target those type of people, or other people within that industry, architects and all those type of things, uh,
mm.
with our outreach, and being able to display our previous projects, and your normal thing, nothing out of the norm there. But usually that way. But we do find that, I think, as every business owner will say, well, when you get the word of mouth kind of client, that's your ideal client, because whoever is coming in as a, basically as a hot lead, and they're a lot more relaxed with you, because whoever has done 10 or 20 projects with you, they kind of, basically, they would know your pricing structure, or what to expect in terms of pricing from
Mm.
them, and you're able to expand and develop from there. And this year, we've really been able to ramp that up. In the first kind of 18 months, it was very much, as I think most companies should go through, is kind of
Mm.
trial and refining your processes.
Yeah.
And then, from when your process is fully refined, and you're very confident in being able to deliver, then only you should really expand, or try to expand. And that does take time as well, to kind of get how you can get that to work. But
Indeed.
yeah, that's our main outlet, in terms of, how we're able to kind of outreach and expand.
Sure, sure. So did you say that the startup is fully bootstrapped right now? Have
Fully bootstrapped. Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
bootstrapped? Okay, great. So we have some property prop tech investors in our community. So would you be able to share your pricing model, revenue model, just to give them an understanding of how you generate money?
Yes, like, in terms of, like, what the service usually costs. Is that
Yeah,
kind of what? Yeah.
just give us an
It,
example, like, for a customer, how much when
Yeah,
you deliver.
it really depends on, it's unfortunate I can't say, like, oh, it's $500 a month or something, or, whatever. We do have a cost for our software. It's usually, it's pretty inexpensive. It's $1 per user, and then it's $5 per building. And
Mm,
then, obviously, when a project might be complete, or you no longer need it, then you just get rid of that building, and
yeah.
that cost is negated. So, and in terms of projects, then, if anyone is working within the property business, those costs aren't, I mean, they won't think about those costs. It's not really relevant. It's
Yeah.
just that. But in terms of actual projects, we range from, on the low end, something residential, which we kind of tend to not do too much of. We're looking anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. And then, for larger, we're talking large hotels, which could be 5,000 square meters or 60 or 70,000 square foot, anywhere from like 10,000 upwards, based on
Mm,
your needs. But
mm,
like that is usually structured around your needs. We usually come in and have a good talk with whoever we're speaking with. And based on what they need, we'll a lot of times say, look, you actually don't need this and this, and you're going to save a lot, so it's only going to cost you $5,000 rather than the 10,000, because we don't recommend it to you.
mm.
So it really depends on the how large the
The
property
project
is.
is. Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, we found that in terms of the market pricing, we're fairly very competitively, if not undervalued, in terms of what we give,
Mm.
as well as harnessing all of the other extra features that we get, which is all of the software things, and kind of embedding you into that ecosystem, which is very probably more powerful or more important than the other things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, in a very very high level or a helicopter view, I could say that if there is a small project with, I don't know, 5,000 square feet of area, um, the costing would be somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000
Yeah.
for your services. And how long that service span stands for? Is it 2 months, 3 months, or life of the project? Or
Life of the project. So that's like, in terms of, I think what you have to understand when you're looking from a helicopter view. So say for example, you have a 5,000 square foot or 6,000 square foot restaurant, and
mm,
they're redeveloping, or else it's a vacant space that a restaurant is coming into.
mm,
The thing that will be the least expensive through that whole project is my services, and they'll be the basis and the foundation for the full project throughout the whole duration. So all the as built drawings and plans and all that. So like, in terms of the pricing, it's usually not something that they really focus on, because at the end of the day, they're probably going to be buying, 5 sets of chairs, which all of a sudden cost $3,000 anyway. So the costs of these things are really, so it's really relative in terms of the project.
mm,
You might have a project that's $500,000. That's the budget for the project, and then we're only taking 5,000 of it. And then when you think of every single person involved in that project will be within the software, every single person will be using the data that we give them, all of that, and all the visual data as well that we give, is it's kind of, that's where you have to look at it when it's a helicopter view,
mm.
in terms of the actual project size and things as well. So and we have worked with lots of different projects, so that even projects with a lot less budget, even minor renovation projects, might be focused on a singular room or something like that, where we come down a lot in price. It might even only be a thousand bucks or something. But yeah.
Okay, great stuff. So let's head back to to your story a little bit, right? So I'm eager to learn more about you. You know, the person behind this innovation. Can you take us back to your roots? Share with our listeners about your upbringing, your childhood, and how did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become the entrepreneur today?
Yeah, I think I had a very good. I was very privileged in the childhood that I had. Two very good parents, and good leaders, and very good overall. Like, I can you can only be, to be honest, look up to them in terms of parents. As I get older, like, I kind of go, Jesus, wow, they really did a fantastic job. It's a lot to live up to. But I think one thing that was embedded into me from a very young age was that you have to work extremely hard. Doesn't
Mm,
matter what it is. And, you have to, whatever you're pursuing is, you're not going to get anywhere unless you give 100%. And I think a lot of that came through obviously my mother was kind of running the household, and she did a humongous amount of work. And also then my father was running his own business. He had a car dealership, and that also went under in around the crash in 2008, 2009.
mm,
And at that stage then had to keep on, to try and hold up a household and keep working. That was then embedded in me. And I think that, that era of, obviously, the crash, I think definitely passes down. Obviously not so much the stress, but obviously the, like, the in some ways the panic of always having to work and work very hard was put in there, and no one else giving you a handout. There's no one going to give you a free ticket or a free ride.
Yeah.
That's only produced by yourself. So I think that in terms of like child and my upbringing, I think that was kind of very clear from the offset. As to harnessing that drive to do something on your own and to go out on my own. I think I always had that. I think when I was really young, I thought I was going to open up a car dealership, but then I ran, well, got the experience from my father. He didn't want that. He said,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
good for you. Um, and so, even, when I was doing internships in college, working for companies, I always, I never really was fully committed or in it until I had ownership of it or had some percentage of it.
Mm.
And yeah, so that's I think from a childhood perspective as to why this I've ended up where I am, maybe in terms of uh, naively, maybe in some ways people would say, going out and wanting to do it on my own.
Mm.
That's where it's kind of the foundation of it has come from.
Well, that's the way you have to jump into the fire to get out across the fire
Yes.
thing. So that's the best. And being so young in the entrepreneur real space, it gives you a lot of advantage,
Yeah.
among the co-founder space we have right now, because a lot of people jump into the entrepreneurship um, after they have gone through this 9 to 5 rat race for very, very long, and they understand that they're just exchanging their time against some money, which is not
Hmm.
going to help them for future. And doing so at this early age, I think it's amazing. It's a blessing, basically, especially because you had some parents influencing your childhood to go
Yeah.
towards the journey.
I think that's a very important point, and probably why I've been able to bootstrap it as well. Is that, obviously, I do think of, if I was, like when I started, when I started, I was 22 when I officially was launching businesses. And I had a cushion in that, like, I didn't need to earn I didn't have a family, or I didn't have anything that, if things went to shit per se,
Mm.
I always had, I could fall back on something. But and I didn't yearn for, huge vast sums of money. I wasn't coming from, whether I was 35 or 40, and I
Mm.
was in a very comfortable job with a good salary, and then kind of saying, okay, well, I have to jump from that and then start a business, and technically I won't make any money for the first 2 years, really.
Mm.
And I think that's important to say, that obviously from starting young, I think it is, if people are looking into it, I think, you know the younger is probably better, because you're not, you don't have so many pressures, you don't have a family, you don't have, a lot of these things that you have to think about. And
Yeah.
if you're bringing in small money, it doesn't really matter at the end of the month. If you're not really if you didn't pay yourself for that month,
Mm.
you'll still live, you'll get through. And no one is really dependent on you for that to come in. So I think that gives you a lot of freedom, and moving forward, if people are thinking about it, who are a bit younger,
Mm.
um I think it is a great time, rather than to kind of shove it off to the future. Oh, I'll do that when I'll do that later. I'll do that. Not to say that you can't do. Obviously, of course you can. But I do think, if you do have that idea, maybe just start it on the side, when you're younger, and see where it goes. Commit yourself 2 days a week or something to it, or, and be able to do that. Because I do think, like you said, when you're speaking to maybe people, they're doing probably not bootstrapped, they're funded. And that's why they've done all the market research and having to get venture capitalists in. And all of a sudden, that the reason why they've had to do that is because, really, at the end of the day, they need to sustain a wage for themselves. So that
Mm.
first, the funding, a lot of the funding at the start is kind of like, okay, the personnel of the team is being funded and given a salary for the first 2 years, and that's kind of a lot of where the funding goes. Obviously
Mm.
there's marketing and all the other things as well, and R&D and stuff that goes into it, and software development, but ultimately that's where it's coming from. So that's, maybe in some ways why I didn't have to. uh, do all those other things in those ways. But I do think it is a good point to kind of say, obviously, I'm a bit younger in the entrepreneur world, but I do think that has had major advantages for me in some ways.
Awesome. Awesome. And I couldn't agree more with you on this one, because once you have investors on your back, then you become so much accountable, so much under pressure. And essentially, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Being an accountable and speed and scaling up is sometimes good, depending upon what kind of startup you are in or what kind of business you are in. But it is too much pressure for not getting your creativity out, to
Yeah,
be honest with your customers, to deliver the value. So I kind of agree with that, because sometimes it's better for your business. For example, I don't know if you've heard about MailChimp. They were bootstrapped for years and years.
yeah,
They were not even bought by QuickBook for, I think they bought by QuickBook like for like 3 4 years, 5 years back. Before that, he went to more than 300 plus investors face to face, pitched his idea. Nobody was interested in, because
yeah,
it was so basic from their
yeah,
perspective, right?
yeah,
And then suddenly it becomes the $1 billion company within a
yeah,
few years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
great stuff. So can you share a case study, a compelling case that highlights how a company leveraged GeoMaus solution to achieve success and solve their key business challenges, for example, a project or something. And I would
Yeah.
love to hear about the specific problem they faced and the steps taken to implement the solution, the GeoMass solution, and the measurable outcome they experienced as a result.
Yeah, I think one of the more notable ones, because it expanded across the whole of the US for me, and it kind of that gave me my start. Was there was a restaurant group, a fairly big restaurant group in I don't know if I'm able to really name them, so I won't name them, but a big restaurant group in the US, and they kind of came to. I reached out to them, and then we kind of had a chat, and we did a single location in Boston for them. They were looking at getting a solution for managing. They kind of merged with a couple of different restaurants, so they wanted to have everything under the single roof, and they
Mm,
wanted to get something that they could manage the restaurants kind of a bit more remotely, and also being able to get drawings, plans, floor plans and drawings for their buildings for future development or future reworks or just maintenance in general.
mm,
And we did that first one, and that went quite well. And then about a month later, we did another one that was in Cambridge, in Massachusetts. And then, that kind of piled on. And then all of a sudden, we kind of came back and we said, well, we're looking, they said, we're looking to kind of expand as well as redevelop these restaurants that we've taken over to a higher spec. And what you give us is really powerful, because we're able to start the development really quickly, get all the drawing work, and then being able to prepare bids, get all the architects involved, bring them into it, interview them, show them the space,
mm,
and save them a huge amount of money in the time. Because if you think, for example, say you have 30 different locations located over the full span of the US, you have to get individual quotes and invoices for basically a new company, for every one of those areas, to actually provide a physical service. And
mm,
quotes are ranging from, we were doing, quotes were ranging from, a couple $1,000 to they were getting quotes for $35,000, $40,000 for a single location.
mm,
And we were able to come in and kind of normalize that and give them a pricing structure for that, and being able to work with all of their team and organize all of this for them. So it saves them a huge amount of time and stress and ultimately money. And
mm,
it's also being used for the full duration of the project. So like I'm even getting, we've done scans about 18 months ago, and they're still accessing them, they're still actively using them, they're still contacting me about certain things, about those things. So if you can think, I think that's been one of the greatest success stories with GeoMaus and its use cases, was for them in reducing costs, increasing productivity, and really, once they hadn't seen the type of technology before, and now it's a no-brainer, and it's literally embedded into their company now at this stage, whereas if they're going to do something like this, the first person they contact is us at
Mm,
GeoMaus. So I think that's something I'm quite proud of, and shows the use case and the value for the customer quite well.
indeed, indeed, and that's a really good use case study for my listeners, because they now understand how things work when they are into this kind of project with GeoMass. Is like, it's not just about modeling everything into 3D and getting it visualized. It is also about collaboration. It is also
Correct.
about bringing information together. It's also about making things more streamlined, so that every single stakeholder could work together and save time, money, efforts, everything.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Great, great. So, so Michael, I'm enjoying this conversation so much that I don't want to stop. But unfortunately, we are heading towards the end. So, before moving towards our lightning round, I would like to know more about your experience. There must have been valuable lessons learned. If you don't mind sharing, could you reflect on your experience and tell us about a mistake or a setback that encountered along the way, and you now consider it not a regret but like a lessons learned? And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on that experience?
I think, when I started it, I think the main thing is the team. So like surrounding yourself, or, a lot of my work has now been, we've done a lot of partnership deals with service providers across the US, Ireland, and UK. So we have a
Mm,
lot of people within our network that we can, call upon to do a service or a job for us in a certain location on site. And I think at the start, I kind of maybe naively just thought anyone could do it.
mm,
And I kind of just kind of willy-nilly contacted people, and, got it all kind of to work. And there were some, you know, substandard work that was done because of that. And I had to do, I obviously I looked at it and I said, well, that has to be redone again,
mm,
and all of that. So, there's a lot of mistakes in terms of that. And then also kind of in terms of the processing, business process that we mentioned before, a lot of that wasn't very refined, and it wasn't, when I was delivering it, I was kind of going, this isn't as professional or as streamlined as I'd like it to be.
mm,
And it kind of seemed a bit startup-ishy, kind of a bit, all over the place. So there was a lot of lessons learned in how to deliver something in a professional manner and in a streamlined manner, and how you have to go about that, and how the amount of work that's actually involved with that. So like, you know, the service providers that we have now, every single one of them is vetted. So we all have calls with them. We vet through their experience, what they're able to do, all of that, and all that is taken down, and then we have all of that for our front, and then we
mm,
have all the procedural documents that we send to these service providers, and how to provide the service to the GeoMaus standard. And
mm,
then also all the background in terms of the software, how the software should look, how we deliver all of our deliverables to our client, how to make that streamlined, how is that easy for them. So, in terms of that, that's really the main lessons. Was like, I was probably somewhat naive in thinking that, just do it and then deliver it.
mm,
Really, when you want a professional, and commendable business that you're very proud of, you have to work on all the little tiny steps.
yeah.
And I think people forget that, in terms of like, when you see someone like me who's the head of the company and there's people below me or whatever, but a lot of the time that CEO or whoever, it has actually come up with every single step and business process that you can imagine
Mm,
for
yeah.
all the team members and all of that. So I think that a lot of that can become overwhelming, and to be, you're kind of going, how did I become some sort of a developer here when I have no experience in this? And you're setting the standards for, how to do whatever it might be in
Yeah.
areas that you're not familiar with. So all of that learning and all of that comes with it, and building a team.
Mm,
I think is now, like, when I'm kind of growing now a bit more. And I know I always heard that, your team is extremely important and da 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 da. But
Mm,
the more I actually think about it, all this technology, but actually your team members and who you bring into your business and how you lead them is probably the most important thing once you get past that kind of initial step of all the processes that are in place. And,
mm,
in some ways, obviously there's always new processes to come in, but, once you have that in place, that you know building that team is absolutely vital, and really is if your company is going to kind of expand rapidly, or is it just kind of going to go up topsy turvy.
yeah, yeah. No, totally agree. Team is very essential. Partners, teams, stakeholders are very, very crucial for your business. You have to be very careful when you onboard them. Great. Okay, so we should wrap up now. We are
Sure.
going into the lightning round, and I've got six quick fire questions for you, and just answer them as quickly as you can.
Sure.
Great. Okay, what book would you recommend to our audience and why?
I think 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson. I think
Sure.
it's just a must read.
Mm, mm. No, I have it in my reading list, so I have to finish that one. What's one of the best pieces of business advice you have received?
um I think I received it from other people. I said at the start of this podcast, but things are always going to take longer than you think.
Hmm, great. What one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Um, Determined.
Hmm, yeah, a lot of people I interview, they get into determined and great, and
Mm.
tendencies, so they all resonate with each other. What's your favorite personal productivity tool and habit?
Habit. I think it might be a different one, but actually having a structure outside of work. So,
Mm,
I have a kind of regimented workout routine, and I think that has actually been one of the best productivity things that I've done. Is that I take an hour or an hour and a half during the day, during workout hours, a lot of the time, to actually just take a step out, go work out. A lot of times I'm actually thinking in my brain about work when I'm in the workout, and then I come
mm,
back and I'm actually much more focused, refreshed, and it splits up the day in terms of, okay, my morning time is for all the emails, gym time for work, kind of thinking of what I'm going to do for the next, and then the evening and afternoon is split up. So that I'd say that.
yeah, structure is so important for your daily activities, especially when you're a founder. So because you we are juggling among
Mhm.
many activities. Okay, uh, what's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
I have a YouTube channel for motorcycles, and my dad runs a motorcycle business, and I create videos for all the bikes that we do. And I think if I was to do something that I'd enjoy and probably wouldn't be as stressful, I'd like to set up a course or a kind of a online platform for dealerships, whether it be cars or motorcycles, on how to easily and quickly create these advertising videos of, like, the car itself, and very inexpensively, because that's how I've done it with retro bikes. And I think it's something that would be extremely powerful for the industry, and I think a lot of people would jump on. So, that would probably be an idea I'd like to pursue.
I like that because it's very niche and it's targeted towards the B2B
It's
spaces.
it's niche. It's very probably easy to market. You know who your target is, and the price and cost wouldn't be that high, and you'd have a lot of positive. Anyway, it would be a different type of business.
Yeah, yeah. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
An interesting or fun fact that people don't know about me. Most people don't know. I think I'm actually probably quite laid back and easygoing, which a lot of my kind of colleagues and people involved with the business, when I'm strictly in business mode, it's very serious, and and that. But I think outside of that, I'm pretty chill.
Hmm. Yeah, it happens to a lot of founders that they're very focused, very determined while they are working, but when the moment they switch off their laptop or go out of their work, a new personality comes out,
Yeah,
chilled
yeah,
out, relaxed, laid back. So
yeah.
it's very different. And I understand that. Great. Okay, so that finishes our lightning round. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and unpacking these last years of building this business and some of your ups and downs along the way. If people want to check out GeoMass, what they have to Google, or what is the website? And if the folk want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think www.geomaus.com, so GeoMaus is the website. But the best way to reach out to me is usually LinkedIn. It's just my name, Michael Kiernan. You'll find me with GeoMaus. And that's usually the best way to reach out. It's very easy. In some ways, it's becoming less and less informal or formal to reach out on LinkedIn. So, if they have anything that just want even a casual thing, then that's usually the best way.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing through GMAS. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on our podcast.
Yeah, and you too, Ash. It's actually been I really, really enjoyed our conversation. It's been brilliant and flowed really nicely. And yeah, very pleased, and it's been a pleasure to come on. And I thank you for inviting me.
Cheers. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of our Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Michael insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.